with homemade pretzels, baked potatoes, coleslaw, and homemade tartar sauce. So let's start out by making the dredge for our tilapia on here. So we've got our eggs, and we're going to start with our flour, which is all the way over there. And we've got 6 pretty good size tilapia fillets. So I'm going to add about 2 cups of flour to this. And we will add some panko breadcrumbs on the second dredging. But for our first base, we're going to get down. Flour everywhere. We're going to do, changing it up. A lot of times I do Old Bay spices, but I'm going to do Italian spices in it today. So we're going to put in about a tablespoon and a half of Italian seasoning. Shake more. And then we're going to add in some onion powder. We'll give a nice savory flavor, about a tablespoon or so. And some paprika, which will help give it a nice kind of amber color when it fries, just about a half a tablespoon, nice kind of savory flavor. And then we're going to do some garlic salt since we're doing that Italian seasoning. So I'm going to do about a tablespoon or so of garlic salt, so a good shake over. But a little bit different than I normally do my fried fish because I just feel like these flavors are going to be a little bit nicer. Slide this over there, changing it up. Kind of complements the baked potatoes, which I haven't done in forever, but I do have them baking. My baked potatoes, what I do is I scrub them clean, then I put them in aluminum foil with a little pat of butter, salt, and I bake them at like 300 for 3 hours. So they're nice and really tender inside. They make the best, but then their skin is so delicious because it's got like a salty butter kind of deliciousness to them. Okay, mixing up our panko here. I'm just going to slide my cutting board out and we'll push it towards the back. That way it can stay mess free. Get our eggs going. And then after we get these kind of dredged up and ready, we will start shaping our pretzels to boil and then bake. I know it's kind of a random pretzels and fish, but I feel like it can work. It's a random, but it works. You know, it's a play on fish and chips. Instead of fish and chips, you got fish and pretzels. Not the same. Okay, let's pop each yolk. Let's give it a good whisk. Make sure you get it all mixed up into your egg white. Otherwise, you'll get like a long, stringy piece that will like fry up, or a snotty piece in there that doesn't get crispy. And this was going to be our egg wash for our tilapia that we're going to fry up. We're doing kind of an Italian seasoned fry up on it, so a nice kind of savory base on there.
You have a question? Do you write out a menu every week?
No, not at all. A lot of times when I go, I just buy what groceries look good, and then I kind of figure out based on that how I feel each day what I make. I like to have a lot of staples in my house so that I can cook a wide variety of food at any time. So I always am loaded with onions and potatoes and carrots and celery and pasta. And then, I've always got canned tomatoes. So, and every spice known to man, I feel like I've got a lot of spices. So I can really change up and have a wide variety of things. And then when I go to the store, I just look for sales or, what's in season, what looks good. And I kind of buy that. Now, some things I'll have like a thing in mind when I'm buying it. I'm like, oh, I'll make this with it. But other things, it's just like, okay, what am I going to do with the ground beef this week, or, Italian sausage or whatnot. So I just like having a wide variety, like, just changing it up and not being stuck to something. Now, it kind of drives my kids insane because they ask me all the time, what's for dinner? What's for dinner? What's for dinner? And I'm like, food. You'll like it, food. That's pretty much my answer every single day. Food. Now, right now, I'm trying to cook through what I have left in my house. before the new year, so I can just kind of eat out all of our last little scraps, and then we can start the new year off fresh on there.
You get this question a lot. Does your family eat all the food?
So I make food for my family and then my parents as well. So we are a large family already. So there's 7 of us here, and then my parents, that's 9. And then I always make them enough portions for my stepdad to have a lunch as well, or an extra portion because he's kind of, a big eater. So we typically don't have too many leftovers, if ever, because they typically go to my parents after this. So it works out well because we're not a leftover family. And I feel like that is because growing up, it was weird. So Monday through Friday, it was like your cook. And it was honestly, once I was like 13, 14, I started cooking Monday through Friday meals for the family. But it started out as one sibling cooked one night a week during the week. And then Saturday was leftover day. And then Sunday, my mom would cook a big Sunday dinner and add in about a cup of panko breadcrumbs to this. And it quickly turned into Saturday as being the day we would go out to eat when I got older. So it wasn't leftover day. And my stepdad would eat all the leftovers because we just weren't a fan of leftovers on here. Okay, we're going to dip our first dredged into our egg and then into our mixture with the panko breadcrumb. Now, these fillets are rather big, so I'm making a mess per usual. But I'll give it a good cleanup after this. But I want to just get these all dredged up and ready so I can get them dropping and frying in a little bit after we get our pretzels going. So everything can kind of finish up at the same time.
Can you go over the seasonings in the dredge?
Yes. So I kind of wanted to go with an Italian kind of seasoning on here today. And so we have Italian seasoning, onion powder, garlic, salt, and yeah, I think that's it. Oh, and then panko breadcrumbs and flour. So pretty simple, but great flavor. Lots of it. You always want to use a lot more seasoning than you think when you are doing this because, again, you are just getting the outside of your, fish or chicken or whatever you're going to be breading. So you need to make sure that you have enough seasoning on it that's going to flavor the whole thing. So go for more than you think because it's something that you want to do a little bit more heavy. And then season it. Some people will just do a plain flour dredge their first round, and I'm like, season it all up. It makes it a little bit easier in the process, but it gives you the flavor all the way through. Gonna need bigger bowls next time. These fillets are huge. There. Perfect, but they cook up so nicely. I will say, so I do my fish 2 ways. When I have tilapia, I typically do a hand breaded because I find that it just works really well for the hand breaded technique for it. But when I ever get cod, which they don't always have fresh cod, and I don't like frozen cod because it's been too waterlogged. But when they get it fresh, I'll do a battered fish. And I haven't done that in a while, so I'll have to keep my eye out to see if I can find some fresh cod on there. But it's slightly different because that's instead of, doing it in the egg wash and the thing, you actually make a batter that you dip it in and then you kind of fry it up in there. So it's a different type of crust on it and things. But again, nice and lovely. Okay. Get this and then we'll have a scrub down for my miss. And always try when you're doing this, see if I keep one hand clean, I have one hand that I can go and do and work around and turn stuff on if I need it, or when I go to wash my hands, I can turn the sink on. Just really try to focus on it. It's not natural in the beginning, but once you've got your focus on it, it will, trust me, make your life so much easier.
You have a question. Why do you prefer this method over the bag method, like shake and bake?
So the bag method doesn't give you a really good coating. So it gives you a light coating that doesn't stick on very well. So it's more of a very light breaded. And so I really like this because this gives me a nice thicker breading around it, which is more delicious. on there. We're going to press this down. And so when you shake it on there, it kind of coats it, but this allows me to really get each base on. And then the breading stays on, I think, a little bit better in the fry process. I feel like shake and bake was a huge thing back in that was like everyone's introduction to frying food. Get the box of shake and bake. Okay, let's get this. And I'll come back with some paper towels here in just a second. But look at me, always making a mess. Now, if you think I'm messy, I swear my brother-in-law, so messy in the kitchen. Okay, give my hands a good wash down. And then we can get our oil starting to heat up. We'll start shaping up our pretzels so that they can boil and bake. We'll make our coleslaw, a tartar sauce. I've got my potatoes in the oven. Okay. Come back here. And I'll just do a quick little wipe down. That way we just get the majority of this out of the way for now until we're ready. Okay. Let's get our oil going for frying. You don't need a whole lot of oil for it. You just need a nice kind of thin or so layer. It's about a cup and a half on here because as you add your fish in, it will bring the level up. But you need enough to fry it on one side and then we'll flip.
How was the lunch?
It was excellent, delicious. I actually sent some to my friends because we had an extra. And she was like, this is the best thing ever. Can you make me some to put in my freezer? And I was like, yeah, next time I do, I'll make a big pack for you. It's just so tasty. I mean, who doesn't love Red Lobster biscuits on there? So just delicious. Okay, I'm going to turn this up to get it ready for boiling on here. We are going to add in baking soda. So I boil my pretzels in a baking soda and water mixture. A lot of pretzels are boiled in lye. I don't like to use lye. It's very caustic. This gives a similar effect, not quite as much of that crunchiness to it, but my pretzels are more like the American soft Annie Ann's pretzels, pretzel time, deliciousness. It is a yeast-based dough, so I've had my dough proofing here. We're going to flip it out, and then there we go. We will cut it up or divide it up into, I like to do 12.
You have a question? Could you air fry these fish, or would you have to do a different breading?
You would probably want to do a different breading. You wouldn't want it as thick because air frying probably wouldn't do as well with it. Now, I do have like a modified version where it works well with the air fry. Instead of doing like the panko and all that, you can actually use a little bit of almond flour with it. And it actually works there really well because there's just the natural fat in the nuts that crisp up well in the air fryer. I haven't done that in a while. I used to do that when we kind of did way back and we did like keto. And so I had a bunch of like keto recipes on there. But then I realized I love bread way too much to actually fully commit to keto forever because bread is so delicious. And I think we all in our family realize how much we love bread. Hence, we have making pretzels right now, and I have sourdough prepping. So we're going to roll up our pretzels here. Now, I do not do the traditional pretzel shape, but I will show a sample of it because I find that my little twist method works a little bit faster, quicker. So this is my method that I do, which I call the loop, loop, swoop, and kind of pull through. And it's not a pretzel, but it holds together really well, and I can make it a lot faster. Now, the traditional pretzel method, you got to roll your guy out, and then you kind of twist it, and then pull it through. Here we go. And there is your kind of your traditional one, making it try to sit there. I feel like mine holds up a little bit nicer in the boiling process, less likely to fall apart. And I can go through them really, really fast on there. Now, if I'm going to make, I'm making this into 12 portions, but you can actually make them bigger or smaller. Like, if you're making the really big ones, then making the pretzel ones work out really well because then it's cool to have a really big, pretzel for it. But when I do it in like the 12, which is smaller, and sometimes I'll do 15, I find that this method works well. And I call it the Lena method. The loop soup and the pull. And it kind of resembles somewhat of
bread knot.
It's a bread knot, yeah, a pretzel knot. It works well. Because every time I do it, like here's my little traditional one, I always get like messed up. There we go. This one actually turned out fairly well. There we go. I always get messed up whether I tuck them in or leave them on top. So they're simple but difficult at the same time. Let's see. I think our oil is just about ready here. I'm going to test it. I'm going to bring it down to about a 4, and then we can start to fry our chicken off on it. Fish. Haha, it is fish. So when you do it, you have your oil start high and then you bring it down low. Once we get our fish in here to drop, we'll have it start to sizzle nicely. But you don't want to leave it on a high temperature for too long because it will burn your breading before you've cooked through your fish. I think I'm going to have to do 2 at a time because these are huge fillets instead of 3. I've got it down on about a 4 now, so a little bit below a medium. That way it will fry up nicely while cooking our fish through. Let's get this loop swoop in, pull. There we go. And these soft pretzels are probably my family's one of their favorite like bread type things that I make. They are so delicious. We do them both salty and sweet. So we'll put them, the pretzel salt on them, which you have to get actual pretzel salt. You can't get like regular salt. Regular salt is too salty. Pretzel salt is a lot less salty, but you get bigger flakes of it. And we also do them with cinnamon sugar. So you have some dessert pretzels as well as, your own. This one's going to be a big one. So I'm going to actually turn this guy into a pretzel. When I divide my dough, they're not always evenly divided. Some people will get out their scale and measure it up. Me, I'm like, yeah, that looks good. And it always turns out that I have some really giant ones and then some really itty bitty tiny ones. Okay. Might be ready to flip our fish here in just a second. Now, fish cook up much faster than chicken because it's a thinner for it, and so it's longer and thinner. I'm going to grab a spatula out to help me with my flipping on here because they are bigger. I'm going to look to see if I've got a nice, beautiful golden color to it. Perfect. Beautiful. I'm going to rotate my pan here. And then before I get to the next step, I'm going to put some paper towels out so that I can transfer these out onto paper towels, which will allow them to crisp up. It absorbs the extra oil so it doesn't get too greasy and allows the fish to stay nice and crispy. And then we can get these pretzels boiling off here as we finish rolling them. Like we're gonna have because I gotta complete my row of regular pretzels in the middle. This one is kind of a weird looking one, guys. And then I'm going to get my last little loop and swoop, and then we'll boil them off. Here we go. And the reason why I find the loops and swoop is they bake up a little bit nicer. Okay, we're going to drop these in. I got my water with the baking soda in. I like to put them in upside down first. We're going to boil them for about 30 seconds on each side. And then what I'm going to do, don't you flip over yet, is once they're done boiling, there we go. I kind of give them a dunk to flip them over to the other side. That one's wanting to flip over already. Let me grab my slotted spoon. So you're just going to go through, and then after 30 seconds, you kind of poke them over, flip them over, just like that. Beautiful. And then 30 seconds on the other side. And that's going to give you the chewy crust. Now, you can boil them up to a minute on each side if you want to. That gives you, again, a thicker crust on it. I like the 30 seconds works well, but you have to boil your pretzels. Otherwise, you're just going to have a roll when you bake it up. Okay. These are there. And then you'll want to make sure you use the, what was I going to say? The baking soda in here to give you that nice kind of pretzel texture as well. We'll slide these up, and you can see, just notice the size difference as they come out. The boiling allows them to almost have a really fast rise on it. Here we go. There's my regular pretzel. Not as pretty. Get these guys in here. Okay, we'll let those boil up here. Let's check our fish here, see how we are looking. Looks like we have a beautiful golden fry. We're gonna pop this one down. Make sure you put it nice oil side down. There we go. Get our next fillet out here. Make a little room for it. You look how big these fish fillets are. They're just massive. Okay, let's get our next round in because we've got 2 more rounds of these to go. Again, keep your oil nice and low so you get a nice golden brown fry on it, but plenty of time to cook your fish through. I've got mine over a 4, so just under a medium. We're going to allow that to cook. Let's pop these pretzels over. Now, another thing about these pretzels is these are going to bake at 450 degrees for about 8 to 9 minutes. So they bake at a really high temperature, which allows them to puff up and get a nice, again, golden brownish color to them. We will brush them with an egg wash here in just a second, but we want them to boil up nicely. I've got 4 more after this. But again, it's like they grow almost double in size. Now I divided my dough into 14, or 12, but you can divide. Sometimes I do really big ones. Sometimes I'll do smaller ones. It really just depends, you know, how many I want to make or what we're using them for. I've got my ones in here right now. They're wanting to flip over. I like to do the bottom side first, simply because that allows them to go up and good. I'm going to grab an egg out so we can make our egg wash here. And we'll brush that over. The egg wash is going to give your pretzels that nice shiny brown color to it, which you need, because otherwise you bake them up and they won't be as nice in color.
You have a question? Do you ever do catfish?
I do catfish when I can find it. You know, I love catfish, but sometimes catfish can get a little, you never know whether you're going to get a good one or not. But when I can find it fresh, sometimes Costco carries it and I like their catfish, then I will do catfish. And my kids like it. They actually can't really tell that much of a difference between it, but I do love catfish. Honestly, my kids, we love most fish that we've kind of tried. Pop this over. Now, there was a few things that they were not a fan of. I always remember the shark. We tried the shark and the swordfish. They did not like shark and swordfish on there because they're tougher meat or tougher fish. You know, they're not as flaky and nice. Boil this up and then we'll brush these and we can get these off. Then we just have our coleslaw to make, our tartar sauce to make, and then I can take our baked potatoes out. So we're good timing on everything. Okay. And get this out. Slide this in. There we go. And just making sure I get all of that residual water off. I'm going to turn this off and we're done with this baking soda water. And now we're going to brush over the tops of our pretzels with our egg wash here. Now make sure you cover your entire pretzel with this because if you miss a little segment, you will definitely tell during the bake up because that one will be pale wherever you miss it because this egg wash is going to give your pretzel the nice brown color to it. Yeah. So really coat it up. And then make sure your oven is nice and preheated at 450 degrees. And the nice thing is this bakes up pretty fast once it's in there. And then I don't put pretzel salt on mine now. I do it afterwards. I rub them down with a little bit of butter and then put the pretzel salt on. It tastes better that way. And that way you can decide at the end how many you want to be sweet and how many you want to be savory. One of these days, I keep saying, I'm like, ooh, I should try making a pretzel with like cheese inside and seeing if I could do like a stuffed pretzel. I've done stuffed pizza crust before, but I've never done a stuffed pretzel. So might try that. I'm always just afraid that during the boiling process, I'll mess up and I'll have it oozing out. There we go. And brush this down, and then let's check our fish real quick. See if we're ready to flip them. Get in there. Okay. Beautiful. Gorgeous. I'm going to rotate and put my pan there. Okay. And we'll just one minor little dab over again because I want to make sure they all get this nice little egg wash on them. And let's go pop this in the oven. This is going to bake at 450 degrees for 8 to 9 minutes. So I'll set my timer right at, 8.5, and that way we get over there. Depending on, how hot your oven, sometimes it can go a little faster, a little slower. Also, depending on what size that you make. Bigger is going to take longer. Smaller will take less time. You grab, while I'm over here, I'll grab my pretzel salt, the one and only. You definitely, if you make homemade pretzels, you need pretzel salt because it is very different than your regular salt. Okay, let's get our coleslaw going because you can't have fried fish without coleslaw. I'm going to take off the whole outer chunk of this. That way. Whenever I'm storing it, I always just take off a thin slice wherever because it always dries out and it's not as nice. And then let's just take, that should be enough. A little bit of cabbage goes a long way in coleslaw because once you start to shred it, it actually spreads out and it makes a lot more because there's just lots of these little nooks and crannies in it and it just grows in size. So really thin. Now you can always get a bag of the pre-shredded cabbage if you want to, but I find the head of cabbage will last in your fridge forever. Cabbage is one of those vegetables that are just designed to last a long time, like carrots. So we'll have one last us until we use it up. But I'll use it for all sorts of different things and some Asian cooking, slaws, soups, stews. So it's always nice to have.
I don't think it actually lasts forever.
It doesn't last forever. You're right. It's not a Twinkie, but pretty close. There we go. So you see, it spreads out and it makes a good amount. You just got to keep fluffing it, and then it separates more. The funny thing is, so we used to have cabbage as a snack growing up, which I know is actually kind of weird, but I loved it, and it was just something we always had. And when we were kids, we would get purple cabbage, and we would try to eat so much purple cabbage that it would turn our tongue purple. That's a lot of purple cabbage that you had to eat, but that was like what made it super exciting about eating purple cabbage was you could turn your tongue purple. And now I'm sitting here and I'm like, maybe I need to convince my kids that they need to have purple cabbage so that they can turn their tongue purple. Maybe they'll eat it. I don't know. I sitting there and I'm like, why did I ever eat just straight up cabbage as a kid? But I loved it with nothing on it, just straight cabbage. Here we've got some carrots that we're gonna put in here. This is our purple carrot, which is now turning yellow. It's our color changing carrot. I have like a bag of rainbow carrots, and in my rainbow carrots there was one purple carrot, and I'm like, I needed it to be like 90% purple carrots because I just think purple carrots are so pretty. They have no different flavor, so they're just aesthetic, but I'm one of those suckers who you give me a different vegetable in a slightly different color, and I'm like, ooh, it's better. That being said, in my refrigerator outside, I have both orange and purple cauliflower. So I'm going to be doing something with that soon as well. No white cauliflower, just orange and purple. Here we go. We've got our nice little strings of carrots to go into our coleslaw. I realized I put my strips in here full and I need to give them a little chop, otherwise they'll be too long. There's me getting ahead of myself. So we'll just give a couple little chops here. I like doing carrot ribbons versus grated or shredded carrots because they're thinner, which means they're less they're just more malleable and they soak up the flavor a little bit nicer.
You have a question for like purple carrots or purple cauliflower? Do they taste any different?
Nope. They taste the exact same. It's all in your head. It's all a mental game. There is nothing that is different about them. They're just pretty. And you know what? Sometimes that's all you need to get you to eat a vegetable is if it's pretty. A pretty salad is more appealing than a non-pretty salad. Okay, let's make our coleslaw base. Now, I need vinegar and I need sugar. Look at me forgetting everything today. Apple cider vinegar and a little bit of sugar. Now, I don't make my coleslaw super sweet. I like it to be a bit more on the savory side than on the sweet side. So I don't use as much sugar as a lot of people use, but you can always add more. We're going to make our base here. We're going to do, I've got about, say, close to a half a cup of mayo here. And we're going to do about a half a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, so about 3 capfuls. And you can always go more if you want it tangier. I like the apple cider vinegar. It's a little bit of a sweeter vinegar than, say, like a white vinegar, but you can do one. And then we're going to do about a tablespoon of sugar. So a couple good shakes over. We'll mix this up. And I'll give it a try, see if I need to add anything else to it. You can add black pepper, a little bit of salt. Might add a splash of garlic salt to it. But it's relatively really simple to make. I'm going to check out my fish here before we mix it up, see how we're looking. Beautiful, nice golden fry. So put it down. Gorgeous. Beautiful. Okay, let's get our last fish in here. And these are pretty epic tilapia fillets here on there. But luckily with the fish, they're lighter on there. And our seasoning, again, we kind of stuck with an Italian spice. So Italian seasoning, garlic, salt, onion powder in it with, of course, our seasoned panko breadcrumbs. So a nice kind of lighter. A lot of times I'll use Old Bay in my seasoning and Lowry seasoning salt, but I wanted to do it a little bit different. Let's add a little bit more sugar. Do just a smidge more and a smidge more vinegar. It's all about the taste because I don't really use measuring spoons. Once you kind of know how ingredients work together, you can just get the taste there. Let's see. Perfect. And this is going to be our dressing for our coleslaw. Again, it's mayo, sugar, apple cider vinegar. Very simple, but delicious. And I, again, use a lot less sugar than most because I don't want it to be super sweet. But we've got our coleslaw, our cabbage, our purple and orange carrot in here. We'll dress it up and let it kind of soak into that dressing.
No question. Could you use Miracle Whip?
I am not a fan of Miracle Whip, so I would say no. But Miracle Whip is a sweeter mayo, a version of it. So technically, I guess it could work in here because coleslaw is sweeter. But I am very much against Miracle Whip. I feel like you grew up and you were either a Miracle Whip family or you were a mayo family or you were a neither. I love mayo because it's salty. Miracle Whip is sweet. But if that's what you like, you can definitely do it. But those are the main differences that I have found between them is one sweet and one salty. It's like when you get pickles and then you bite into a pickle and it's a sweet pickle and you're like, who makes a sweet pickle? Okay, let's look at these. Ooh, just about. I'm going to rotate them. We're going to turn it over here and then we're going to give them about 1 more minute on here. And they'll be perfect. I like them to get that nice kissed brown all the way through. It's nice at the very end, rotate it because I find that my pieces in the way back get more heat because, again, it's more steady back there. While we're waiting for that to bake up, let's make our tartar sauce, which makes the world go round. We're going to start by adding in some mayo here. We'll do a nice little scoop on it. And we are going to dice up some onion. We need some red onion here. Now, red onions, like I say with the cabbage, they are great. They last a while in there. Red onions are really meant to be eaten in their fresh form. They do not hold up well in cooking. They lose their flavor and their texture fairly quickly in cooking. Now, you can always, in a pinch, put them in there, but they don't hold their flavor well. So, they're not designed like, yellow onions really bring out the flavor when you cook them, while red onions go bland.
Right. 2 questions. How do you store your onion after it's been cut, and what are you making for New Year's Day?
So after my onion is cut, I'll wrap it in a paper towel and put it in a little plastic baggie, and then it stays kind of well, and just have it in my veggie drawer in my fridge. So that's kind of how I store it. For New Year's Day, my plan is to make our Poppin' John's, collard greens with bacon jowl, cornbread, like an apple, like crisp or an apple pie with our apples that we'll get from underneath our pillows, and our southern ham. assuming I can find my southern ham. Sometimes I can and sometimes I can't, but we'll do a pork of some sort because pork is supposed to bring you good luck on the new year. So it might be pork chops if I can't find a southern ham. You never know when they get there. Okay, I think it's been about a minute. So let's head to our oven and grab that. I'm gonna take a peek in here because I realized I need pickles and I want to grab my pickle jar.
Any questions about the apples under the pillow?
So, and I don't know if this is just something my mom always did or if it was a crazy thing, but growing up, look at our gorgeous pretzels first. Admire the beauty of them. Perfect kissed brown on there. Wonderful. So growing up on New Year's Eve, before you go to bed, you put an apple and a quarter under your pillow. And in the morning when you wake up, you're supposed to take a bite out of your apple, and that's supposed to give you good health for the year. And then you're supposed to spend your quarter as quickly as possible, and that's supposed to bring you wealth for the year. So we always sleep with an apple under the pillow, and instead of sometimes the kids will eat them, sometimes I get a bite out of them, and then I've got a bunch of apples with bites out of that I'll turn into an apple crisp or something, because we're all family here. When the kids were little, I would put applesauce pouches underneath them for them so that even the little ones could go in there. But it's just a fun thing, I'm hopefully, we'll continue to be healthy and wealthy and wise. Do a little bit more before we flip these. But it's just one of those, it's the same thing about eating like collard greens and Papa John's and cornbread. They're all supposed to give you health and wealth. We can dream, guys, I was not, unfortunately, the person in Arkansas who won the $1.8 billion lottery ticket. So I am going to have to work this year, unfortunately. Okay, let's grab out. I've been saving these pickles for my tartar sauce. I might get my last of it. Haha, perfect. I just needed two. The other jar of pickles got eaten. My daughter Evie is a pickle fiend, and whenever I have pickles, she just eats them like crazy. She used to love it. I would pack like these big pickles in her lunch. Oh, she loved that. So we're gonna mince up our pickles. You can either use a couple baby pickles or like 2 pickle spears works well. You want to use a salty dilly pickle. You don't want a sweet pickle because you want your tartar sauce to be nice and salty and savory. Mince it up just like with the red onions. Okay. Give this a nice little mince up. We'll pop this over here.
Oh, you have a couple questions. Can you explain what Papa John's are?
Papa John's are black-eyed peas. It's kind of like a cassoulet, like a black-eyed pea cassoulet, which is, kind of like a bee. It's like a type of bean type thing. But it's something that my mom started making when we moved to Tennessee when I was a kid, and it's just been a tradition that we do every year. They're really it's really delicious, but it's a unique flavor in there if you're not used to it, but it is kind of like a beans and sausage type dish. Okay, let's get our pretzels going. We're gonna rub some room temperature butter over it. You could always melt butter and brush it over the top. And kind of coat them up nicely. Beautiful. On here. And this is, I just find it's just nice and easy to do it this way. And then what we'll do is we'll put half of these with pretzel salt and half of them, I do a little bit more with pretzel salt because the kids really like the salty ones. Here we go. And you sprinkle it over. And I will say you got to do pretzel salt. Flaked salt, kosher salt is just too salty. This is not as salty per bit. So we're going to do, here we go. So we'll do that and then we'll leave 4 for cinnamon sugar as a dessert pretzel. And this is delicious. So you just coat it over. And yes, we're one of those crazy households who have a cinnamon sugar shaker because we love cinnamon sugar toast, which may be like an antiquated thing, but I swear I grew up on cinnamon sugar toast and my children do too because it's delicious. Okay, let's get our fish finished frying. Let's get some fresh dill. Now you can always use like dried dill in here. With dried dill, you just need to use less than you would of fresh dill because it's pretty strong flavor. I'm going to put in about, this is probably a teaspoon and a half of fresh dill. With dried dill, you can use just about a half a teaspoon to kind of give you this flavor. So pop that in. And then we need a squeeze juice from half a lemon. And then just a light sprinkle of garlic salt. You don't need a lot because mayo is already salty to begin with, but just a little bit. Mix it up, and you have the best homemade tartar sauce, and it will bring anything store-bought to shame, and it's so easy to make. Okay, let's grab our baked potatoes out of the oven here. I have them wrapped up, kind of being kept warm in here. The best thing with the baked potatoes is you can pop them in a couple hours in advance. They're still steaming hot, but you give them a good scrub down, you put a pat of butter and salt in there, and they're going to be the softest, tenderest, moist baked potatoes. Okay, I think we are just about ready to serve up here. So let me clear this area out, and then we can serve up our dinner. Make a little space here. Let me check my fish, see if it's ready to go up. Almost. Don't want to take it out prematurely yet, but we've got our tilapia frying up nicely here on it. And then we've got our baked potatoes, and we'll make our baked potatoes loaded with sour cream. I've got some green onions here on the side to put in there. So actually, get my scissors out for that. Let's get a spoon, and then of course, I gotta grab my butter because who doesn't love all of this?
DMAC,
Well, thank you, DMAC. We appreciate that. Okay. And let's get a plate. Now I need a knife to cut my potato open. Let's get everything ready. Okay. So we have, look at that nice butter crust at the bottom. We're going to cut our baked potato open. You can just see how nice and tender this is inside. This has been baking at 300 degrees inside our foil for about 3 hours. We'll put our nice pat of butter on both sides. And then you can't beat it without your sour cream, a nice dollop of sour cream. We've got our green onions, because who doesn't love a good green onion in there? And then a nice sprinkle of salt for our loaded baked potato. And then we will serve that up with a fillet of our fried tilapia. Nice, and that is breaded with our Italian seasoning panko breadcrumbs. A good serving of our homemade coleslaw and our slightly sweetened mayo base. A dollop of our homemade tartar sauce with fresh dill, pickles, onions, and lemon juice in there on top of it for everybody. And then, of course, probably the favorite part of our meal tonight, our homemade soft pretzel. because it's just so delicious. So, a pretty simple but delicious dinner for us tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to our page and search for what we made. So our fried fish and homemade pretzels, and you can always watch and cook along with me again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. So I've got my hex-clad pans, my big, huge baking sheet here, all the different things that I use in the kitchen I have in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't